Welcome to another episode of Travel Royally Podcast. We're thrilled that you could join us. And today we have two great guests. We've got Craig Morrison, and Mike Atkinson. And they are the authors of a wonderful new book called GOLFLAND SCOTLAND. And unfortunately, guys, I don't have my copy in front of me, but I know that I bought, or I am buying a bunch more. There, he's got a copy. Thanks, Mike. We're going to get copies for our clients. We're going to give them to our clients as gifts when they return from Scotland. So we're thrilled to be able to do that. So guys, welcome. We're glad you're here.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
It's good to see both of you. I understand that everything's nice in Somerset. How's everything in Edinburgh?
It's been a little bit of a duller day today. So I started my day breakfast overlooking the old course in Rusac's Hotel in St Andrews. I was having breakfast with David Cannon, who's the great photographer, world famous photographer who produced the photography for GOLFLAND Scotland. So I had breakfast with him, but it was a little bit overcast, and he was playing on the old course just after we were having breakfast, and he was a little bit worried that he was going to have to layer up, which is what you have to do in Scotland, is be prepared for any kind of weather, whatever time of year it is.
Right, exactly. Well, I'll tell you what, the work that they've done on Rusac's is amazing, isn't it? What a beautiful facility.
Absolutely stunning. It's really beautiful, and they've done the same at North Berwick and in the hotel in Troon. Really magnificent golf courses now, and they've Rusac's has got this fantastic restaurant and terrace right at the top level now. They've built a whole new section of the hotel where there used to be the old car park, and the views are absolutely magnificent over the R&A clubhouse, the old course, across West Sands Beach. It's a magnificent location.
Well, I agree with you, and they've created really three great restaurants there. You've got the One Under down below, which is a great 19th hole. They've got I forget the name of the restaurant that sits basically on the main floor, and then you've got that top level, which is a wonderful spot for dinner as well. I understand they have wonderful steaks. So
they do. I've had the pleasure of tasting some of the steaks and had dinner there relatively recently. It really fantastic place. What they've done to it is great. I think it'll be a popular location as we approach the 150th Open.
Yeah, and they've added a lot of rooms there as well to the property.
Yeah, the conversion of the car park into another half. They've probably doubled the size of the hotel. Yeah. You couldn't ask for a better location. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I was there. I met Seamus Cohn there, the general manager, and yeah, he was wonderful. Bought us drinks down in the One Under. We were there for the grand opening, or it was really a soft opening, and we got the tour, and the restaurant upstairs wasn't open yet, but the rooms are magnificent. They've got wonderful balconies. They've got a putting green on one of them, artificial putting green. Yeah, that's magnificent. So, Craig, chime in anytime you're ready. I'm just kidding. So, hey, I wanted to ask you guys, when you're not writing wonderful golf books, what do you guys do for a living?
I'm a communications consultant. So the whole media marketing mix, I guess, I identify most as a PR fixer, right? Quite old school, fixing stories for people, increasing fame for them, organizing coverage in newspapers and on TV, that kind of thing.
Excellent. And Mike?
Well, I work in consumer brand investment, and then when I'm not doing the day job, occasionally dabble in writing, including on topics such as golf and GOLFLAND. But that what Craig does is very much how we met in terms of work that I used to do, and met Craig through a lot of the PR work that he was doing. So that's one of the ways we came together.
Excellent. And you're both Scottish, though, correct?
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I live in southwest England these days, but yeah, I'm a Scotsman. I'm from Greenock, in the West Coast on the River Clyde. And I grew up there beside Greenock Golf Club. I could hear people playing off the fourth tee through my childhood. And maybe at about the age of 12, decided to give it a go myself.
Excellent.
I mean, I live in Edinburgh now, but I was also from the West Coast. I was born and grew up in Glasgow, as you can tell from my strong Glaswegian accent.
Yeah, so the question is Celtic or Rangers for both of you?
It's a question you never answer in public.
Too focused on golf to know anything about the football.
But the Scottish national team you both support, right?
Sure. Yeah, the Scottish national team, they've got it tough at the moment. They've got a World Cup qualifier coming up, and it's against Ukraine. So almost the whole world, for obvious reasons, has got great sympathy with Ukraine and will be supporting them. So Scotland, you know, we're sort of hoping that we're going to be the bad guys on the night. It's terrible. Next week, I think.
Yeah, I'll have to watch that. I saw them play a friendly against Brazil at the Emirates, maybe 12 years ago, maybe.
I was there. Neymar scored in the second half.
You were there?
Yeah, I was there. Hey.
What a wonderful match, and what a beautiful facility.
It was great. Yeah.
Very cool.
Sunny afternoon in North London.
Do you remember that so well, Craig? Because we score so few goals that it's ingrained in your mind, the goals that were scored.
It was a 2-1 scoreline, and I just remember it because it was a really hot day, and there's quite a big Brazilian population, I guess, in London, and they all turned out, and it was quite a carnival atmosphere.
Exactly.
Drunken Scotsmen and beautiful dancing Brazilian people. It was wonderful.
That's my memory exactly. It was amazing. It was a clash of cultures, but in a good way. I mean, they got along well, and it was very fun.
Yeah.
That's cool. So you're both from the West Coast of Scotland. How did you both come to golf? It sounds, Craig, like you grew up alongside of a golf course.
Grew up alongside of a golf course, and, you know, friends were slowly getting into it. And I think my dad started taking me to the driving range beside Glasgow Airport, where I imagined that you could hit the incoming planes. Never could, but that got me going.
Excellent. Mike?
Well, I think I got my first set of golf clubs in a summer from my grandfather, and I still remember hitting my first golf shots in his garden. And even at that young age, I was less than 10, getting terribly frustrated that they didn't go in a straight line or where I wanted to hit them. But then I suppose moving from garden to golf course was really with my dad. So as a teenager, I played with him at a golf course that's on the route out of Glasgow to the Ayrshire coast called Eastwood Golf Club. And sadly no more. It's one of the Scottish golf courses that is a deeply historic golf course. It was founded back in the 1890s, but is one of the ones that has suffered over the last few years. And I think during the time of writing GOLFLAND, I think closed down, unfortunately. So it is no more. But I as a teenager, it was my dad who I spent most of my time learning my golf from and playing my golf with.
Well, so now today, how often do the two of you get to play?
I don't know. Varies. It depends on, I don't know, perhaps working on a book. You know, in the past, I've researched books and maybe had, you know, unimaginable years where I've played 50 or 70 games of golf. Do you know what? Maybe on average, it's once every 2 weeks. It's 25 games a year. I'd take that.
Yeah,
maybe a little bit more in recent times because of GOLFLAND.
I think Craig plays quite a lot. Because I often phone Craig and he doesn't pick up, and then the message comes through. I'm on the golf course, so I think Craig gets to play more than he lets on.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think for both of us, it's probably not as much as we would like to, as is the case for many people, but golf has to fit in around work commitments and family life and that kind of thing. So not as often as I would like. But I've got two young boys, and 10 and 8, two sons, and the nice thing about them is that they're both now starting to get into golf.
Right.
and my wife is also a great golfer as well. So I'm looking forward to family four balls on golfing holidays in the future. So I'm hoping that if they gain a love of the game like we have, the future will be spent on many golf courses.
Excellent. There's nothing better than playing with your children. And in my case, I remember the first time, well, not the first time, but several times I was able to play with my dad and my son. So 3 generations on the golf course kind of passed down from one to the other. That was brilliant. So are you guys members of clubs?
Yes, yes. So I play at Gullane, and I am also a member of Boat of Garten Golf Club up near Abbeymoor, which is a beautiful golf course up in the Highlands. And Gullane, number 1, number 2, number 3. I don't know whether you've played those courses, Jeff, but 3 really magnificent golf courses. I'm very fortunate to be a member there.
Yeah, fortunately, I played Gullane 1 a couple of times. I love taking people to the museum.
Yeah.
When Archie Baird was there, and now Jillian and David Kirkwood have it. It's just amazing. And yeah, I love Gullane. I do need to play the other courses there. How about you, Craig? Are you a member of a club?
No, sad to say I'm itinerant. I've not been a member of a club since I was 21. That was Royal Aberdeen, but that feels like a long time ago. I moved to England, but you know, I got into golf writing and golf publishing so that I could go and play lots of interesting golf courses. So there's no shortage. But no, I'm not a member anywhere. I'd like to be.
Well, there are worse places to call your home course than Royal Aberdeen, Gullane, or Boat of Garten, right? Those are 3 spectacular places to play.
Yeah, very, very fortunate. Well, Jeff, how did you learn the game? Was that from your father and then passed on to your son?
Yeah, my father was a golfer. It's a funny, well, my father grew up poor. He was the oldest of 8 kids, and when he was 12, well, actually earlier than that, he had to go out and make money to help support the family. So he sold newspapers, and then he became a caddy around the time he was 12 at a club in Cincinnati called Makatiwa that was designed by Donald Ross. And it's a wonderful old golf course. Obviously now it's over 100 years old, and it's I called up the professional there, and in the States you can't just call up and say, hey, I want to play your course. They'll only let you on typically if you're a member of another club. So I was a member of a club, and I called them, and I said, I'd like to take my dad and his best friend there for their 60th birthday, or no, 65th birthday. So we went, and my dad hadn't been there in over 50 years, right? And he said it's exactly the same. And when I took him to Scotland 25 years ago, actually that was for his 60th birthday, we played at Dornoch, and St. Andrews, which were both big influences upon Donald Ross. And it was kind of, for me, kind of coming full circle. I mean, if you think about it, had Donald Ross not emigrated to the US and built that golf club, my father wouldn't have had a job. I likely wouldn't have learned how to play golf. I likely wouldn't have gone back to Scotland. I wouldn't have sought out Dornoch. I mean, it was amazing. It's the connections there, 6 degrees of separation, if you will.
That's great.
Kind of, interesting.
That's a nice story, worthy of a book, perhaps. You know, sort of family history and golf course architecture, and you know, I can see it. It's quite romantic. The way all golf courses worldwide are an approximation of those early golf courses in Scotland, and the way Donald Ross, having learned from old Tom, brought them to America. I think you should do that for us.
Well, I'll tell you what, I appreciate that, but think about Stuart Maiden emigrated from Carnoustie to Atlanta. He was the head professional at Eastlake Golf Club, which is and he taught Bobby Jones how to play golf. So beyond the Scots inventing the game, or certainly modernizing it, making it a long game instead of a short game like in the Netherlands, the impact that you guys have had on the sport is phenomenal in the US. Architecture, professionals, it's, there's a legacy there, a lineage that's hard to ignore.
So, absolutely. And I think that's why Scotland is for many a pilgrimage in terms of their golfing experience. And we touched on that a little bit in the book. At the end of the book, once we've been through the golf courses, we've got a little bit on Donald Ross and Alistair Mackenzie and these kind of individuals who were all inspired by the golf courses that they grew up on in Scotland, and then they went throughout the world designing and creating what are now some of the most celebrated golf courses all around the world.
Yeah, I want you to think about this. This is interesting. So you guys did a book where you covered all the courses in Scotland, over 674, I think. Is that the number? It's
no.
Well, if we've missed out about 125, which could well be the case.
Oh, okay. No, it's around 600.
I think we got to about 550, Craig. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you know what? No, that's okay. It's interesting you bring it up. Yeah, you've been talking, Jeff, to a guy who has played every golf course in Scotland, haven't you?
Right.
He's done it over 20 years. The numbers have actually dropped significantly. We've come up with 549. We have established that we've missed a couple of private courses, but we'll get there. We'll get there with the second edition. But anyway, yes.
I want you to think about this. So the Scottish game of golf comes to the US. Today, there are 1,600 courses in Florida, right? 3 times as many are as in Scotland. And there are 16,000 golf clubs in the United States. Think about writing your book about all 16,000 courses here in the States.
Oh, it's incredible. Yeah, it is incredible that Craig and I have looked at some of those statistics before, looking at where would be the next book if we were to do Golfland Florida, and that was one of the statistics I think we saw, that we looked at it and went, wow, that is amazing. You think that there's a lot of courses in Scotland, and then you go to one part of the US and there, to your point, there's 3-4 times the number of courses just in that one area. It's incredible.
Yeah, when I read your book, it made me think about, well, how many courses are there in Georgia? And I think the number is 375 in my state, which is phenomenal. But I'd have to think about the landmass comparison between the state of Georgia and the entire country of Scotland. My guess is that you're slightly larger, but you've got 75% more courses, but you've got more courses per capita than anywhere on earth. So
yeah, I think we do. I think there are a couple of outliers, some strange countries like
Fiji.
Fiji or Iceland, or some quite surprising places that actually have more courses per capita. But yeah, I always go around saying Scotland's got more courses per capita than anywhere. It's not quite true.
Yeah.
Could be true.
Well, I'll tell you what, the two of you collaborated on an amazing book. It's called GOLFLAND SCOTLAND. And you had the award-winning photographer David Cannon contribute wonderful photography. I absolutely love the book. I think it's indispensable for someone that's thinking about going over there. And the reason I say that is that it's easy to plan a trip and play the Open Championship venues, or the next tier of courses that would include Dornoch and Royal Aberdeen and Gullane and courses, North Berwick, places like that. But for us at Royal Links Golf Tours, we love to get people into those third tier courses, like Murray behind me, or Boat of Garten, or the others. There's so many wonderful courses in Scotland to experience, and you need to get off the beaten path. I think you guys uncovered a lot of wonderful new courses, didn't you, that you'd never heard of?
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, that's true. That's true. It was surprising, going through the various lists that we could find, and there aren't really any definitive lists of courses the way there are definitive lists of clubs. But going through those lists that did exist and investigating around them, yeah, we discovered lots of interesting tiny courses, little known, that to be honest, tourists visiting Scotland for the first time should definitely seek out. I mean, of course, the gold standard experience might be Troon, Turnberry, the old course, but actually courses that are slightly less well known, slightly less celebrated, less expensive, less busy, are going to give you just as much joy. The differences between the top end and something short of that is subtle sometimes.
Well, I think, yeah, but I think the other thing that's missing, Craig, when you go to Troon, let's say, you don't get to sit in the members clubhouse and have a beer. They put, at least for me, it seems like they've got this separate clubhouse for the dirty Americans. They don't want mingling or contaminating their membership. But if you walk into Boat of Garten, or Royal Aberdeen for that matter, or Murray, or any of those, you sit down with members and you have great conversations, and you realize what you already know, and that is that golf is more about, or just as much about, the camaraderie and the people that you meet as it is about how many strokes you take.
Yeah,
I think that's so true. It's something that Craig and I have talked about a lot, that what makes a great golf course can be design, it can be signature golf holes, it can be water hazards and so on, but actually at a personal level, what makes a golf course is really the emotional experience that you have when you play, and that's connected to the people you meet, the moment in your life that it was happening at. There's all these intangible elements that make the experience of golf what it is, and it's not just connected to, well, it's a really famous golf course. There's so many different elements to it. I mean, Boat of Garten, Craig and I were talking about Boat of Garten earlier, because one of the great things about golf in Scotland, particularly in the Highlands, or as you go further north in Scotland in the summer, is the amazing light that you get in Scotland. And so you can still be playing golf at 10 o'clock at night, 10:30 at night. And then somewhere like Boat of Garten, you can come in and you can sit on the terrace and you can watch the sun go down over the Cairngorm Mountains, and sitting, enjoying a drink with members, friends you just met, or whatever it is. And those can be really special moments in golf, and they don't have to happen at the most famous golf courses.
Yeah, you just raised a great point, Mike. That reminds me, I was in one spring, relatively early in spring. It must have been April. I was playing at Dornoch, and I looked behind me, and there was snow in the mountains.
Yeah.
Right. So I want you to think about this. So then you play down Dornoch, and it's lined with gorse, and everything's in bloom, right? So, and everything's green. And then you can play it in summertime where it's burnt to a crisp and everything's brown. The flowering yellow gorse is gone, or the blooms are gone. The thorns are still there, and the ball rolls forever. It's a different experience, not every month, but in every season, it could be a different experience playing the courses there, which is something I love about playing golf in Scotland. Now, here in the States, you could kind of say this, the club that I belong to here, the springtime, it's muddy, but right now everything's in bloom, so it's beautiful. The summer, the humidity's so bad, you need to bring 2 hats and 3 pairs of gloves, or 3 gloves, because you're going to sweat through them. I love the fall here because there's no humidity, and there's the leaves are changing color, and the courses are lined. All of our courses are lined with trees, so it's beautiful. But it's very much very different in Scotland, and as you said, particularly in the north, where you've got that amazing light. So I've got a question for you, because you guys took on an ambitious task of writing this book. What inspired you to write the book?
What an interesting question. Well, Craig, I mean, the idea really came from, the idea itself came from Craig, and I still remember when Craig called me to talk about it. It was at the start of lockdown. It was when you weren't allowed out of your house for more than an hour once a day. And I was sitting outside the front of our house in Edinburgh, catching up with Craig, and we've bounced around various golf ideas over the years, from golf newsletters to podcasts to various books. And Craig said that he'd had this on his list of things that he might tackle at some stage to produce this comprehensive guide of Scottish golf courses. And he very kindly said, would you be interested in collaborating on it? And the first thing that struck me about it was that I couldn't believe that it hadn't already been done, because it seemed to be, in some senses, a very simple, a very obvious book on Scottish golf courses. And I remember thinking there must be another one of these books, or indeed there must be many of these books already produced. But I went away that evening because Craig said, go and have a look. You'll find ones that show the top 100 courses in Scotland, or the top 100 golf holes in Scotland. But you will find it very hard to find any that's been produced in the last couple of decades that is a comprehensive guide to all of them. So, I mean, I remember finishing that phone call and being quite inspired by the challenge of proving Craig wrong, that this book must already exist, and then discovering that it didn't, and kicking it off almost from that very next day. So I can't take credit for the idea, because it was Craig's idea, and I was very privileged that he considered asking me to collaborate on it. So I don't. It's a good question, Craig. What was your inspiration for the book?
I used to own various golf gazetteers, and I guess they just kind of fallen out of fashion. I used to have one that I carried everywhere. It had a tartan cloth cover and was published by Marks and Spencer's Publishing. Marks and Spencer's is a department store in Britain, yeah, I just hadn't seen any of them in the longest time. You know, I guess it's like the Michelin Guide to Restaurants in France or whatever. Maybe smartphones and technology have driven them out of the marketplace, and I figured, and Mike agreed, that we might find a market for a nice new one.
Interestingly, I think in writing it, it would be fair to say Craig will obviously chip in if he disagrees, but we maybe gained an appreciation as to why there hasn't been a comprehensive guide to golf written over the last 2 decades, which is, it's quite a monumental challenge,
right?
And it's very labor intensive. It's been a real challenge to do it. So I'm not quite sure that anybody else was necessarily mad enough to take on the challenge of doing it. So that's possibly why one hasn't been done for so long. And of course, when you put it into print, the danger is that it's already out of date by the time it gets published, because golf courses, of whether it's a yardage of golf courses or whatever it might be, you know, so sadly in the time that we wrote the book, you know, some golf courses in fact closed in Scotland over that period of time. So golf as a sport, golf courses are constantly evolving. So I think the challenge for us will be keeping it up to date.
Well, before you wrote the book, how many courses had each of you played in Scotland? You certainly hadn't played all of them.
No, and to be honest, we still haven't played all of them, right? We're married guys with kids and jobs and stuff. It's just not going to happen. I was on 130 before I played it, which is not bad for an expat Scot who's been out of Scotland longer than he's been in it. But I'd researched previous golf books and whatnot, and I'm often up in Scotland playing. So I was 130, and that number has probably increased doing some research with Mike on this. Although that number has not increased significantly. I think I'm now 145. So in writing this book, I revisited a number that I played before.
Yeah, I mean, I think we reckon probably we played, you know, 200 odd of the courses in total, and it wasn't over the period of time of writing the book. It was very much going back to courses that we played previously. I mean we were probably both lucky growing up in Scotland. We played a certain number of golf courses, and then I started to play more golf courses in Scotland actually when I was earlier in my career, when I was living down in London, and I met my wife, who's a great golfer, and she's also a Scot. So before we were married and before we had kids, a lot of our holidays were golf-based holidays, some of those being abroad, but a lot of them coming back up to Scotland and playing, you know, staying at places like Glen Eagles and playing the great golf courses there. So over the years, it's amazing how many you accumulate, and then we played a lot more when we were focused on doing this project as well.
Well, Craig, I'm impressed. 130. I think I've got 58 in Scotland. I thought that was a lot, but after talking to your friend Alan McPherson, our numbers pale in comparison to having played literally all of them, right?
Right.
So how long was the book in the making from the time well, obviously it was relatively quick because you said you came up with the idea during the pandemic and published it during the pandemic, now that I think about it.
2 years, I think.
Yeah.
So
yeah, start to finish.
2 years?
Mm.
What's the most surprising thing you learned from writing the book, playing the courses and writing the book?
Gosh. Well, this is a little along the lines of what Mike was saying. The difficulty of producing the book was surprising to me. I've done lots and lots of writing about golf courses, but when you start writing about them in their hundreds, you realize that it's quite tricky to write well about courses without resorting to cliche or without getting repetitive, without just simply narrating a few golf holes that people haven't seen and it's hard for them to relate to, avoiding falling into the same old stories that people who've read lots of golf books have spotted before. It was quite a task. You know, sometimes it's quite hard to write about golf without crossing that line of becoming an old golf bore, and you know, to do 500 plus of them was surprisingly difficult.
Yeah,
that was the shock. It was a pleasant. It was a pleasant shock. It was fine. You know, we liked writing and producing a book, but it was we had to be industrious.
Well, I've written for our website course reviews on probably, I don't know how many I wrote, and most of them were from memory. I mean, memory, and you know, if I'd had your book, I would have looked at it to get some ideas of what else to put in there. But yeah, you're right. When you're describing the course, to not use the same terms over and over, or to find new terms to describe rolling, heaving turf, or, you know, towering dunes, or what have you.
Searching for another word for bunker, all the while knowing that were you to use the Americanism sand trap, you would offend lots of golf aficionados. And, anyway, hard.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So after playing these, do you guys have a new favorite course?
No, I'm stuck in my ways. My favorite's Dornoch, unchanged.
Yeah, how about you, Mike?
And yeah, I think it slightly goes back to our earlier part around what makes a favorite golf course for people can be quite a personal thing. And there were, I mean, we played loads more golf courses that neither of us had played before, but I find it difficult not to come back to the likes of my home course, Gullane number 1, which is linked into so many summer evenings spent on the golf course. I'm fortunate that it's such a stunning one, but you know, summer's evening, standing on the 7th tee on number 1, you can look back towards Muirfield, you see the beach and the water, you can look all the way back to the Royal Mile and Edinburgh Castle from the
Right.
golf course at Gullane on occasions. So I think I probably reverted back to existing favourites from undertaking the research.
Well, let me ask the question a different way. Were there any courses that were surprisingly better than you expected them to be? You know, where you walk off and go, wow, that was much better than I expected.
Yeah. We played Nairn Dunbar, and typically in Murray, people think about Nairn or Murray where you are, but actually, you know, in Nairn itself, the second course, the less celebrated course there, Nairn Dunbar, is a thing of wonder. It's great and much improved in recent times as well. Apparently, they've been clearing out trees and gorse and opening it up so you can see the land naturally. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
Likewise, maybe North Berwick. Everyone thinks of the West Links, but there's the East Links, the Gullane, and it's a really good course. Other courses, Machrihanish Dunes. I mean, I've played Machrihanish Dunes before, but it's been improved a little bit, and it's a great course. People often don't talk about it in the same way they talk about the other modern links, like say Kingsbarns or Castle Stewart.
Right.
Maybe because it's necessarily a little bit rougher. There are environmental restrictions on the way they could build there, but it's a truly great course. So maybe some of those.
How about you, Mike?
Yeah, there's clusters of really nice golf courses that, and I think sometimes it was about that we discovered that golf. Well, the part of Golfland is about how, as we discussed earlier, a lot of the golf courses are unknown but equally as beautiful and challenging as the more famous golf courses. But you go back to the Highland area, and we played Granton-on-Spey, and there's a cluster of the Zavimore, Boat of Garten, Nethybridge, Carbridge, Granton-on-Spey, these villages and towns in that area, and they've all got golf courses. I was very familiar with Boat of Garten, having been a member there for a number of years. Had never played Granton-on-Spey, and it was again a really beautiful James Braid designed golf course, sort of split into sort of 3 sets of six holes. First 6 more parkland, then sort of into the trees for 6 holes, and then some really quirky holes in the final 6. So I think it really shows that the diversity of golf courses in Scotland. There's some lovely 9-hole golf courses in that area as well. There's Carbridge golf course. There's the golf course at Nethybridge, another 9-holer. And I think probably a lot of people who come across to Scotland tend to play the 18-hole courses, but there's great 9-hole courses as well that, with different tee boxes to make up the 2 rounds of 9 to make up the 18, can be great fun and have some spectacular holes on them as well.
Yeah, I agree. I remember playing Anstruther 25 years ago and thinking this is a really unique 9-hole layout. I played that one with my dad. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I mean,
I was
going
to say, what are your sort of top 2 or 3 that you come back to in Scotland as being your favorite? You mentioned Dornoch obviously earlier, but
well, I feel like you do about Gullane with Murray.
Yeah.
I love playing my home club. I love the whole experience. The people recognize me in the clubhouse. The pros know me. I mean, it's wonderful. But we talked a little bit about St. Andrews at the beginning. That's someplace that the old course, and I know a lot of Scots who've never played it, and there's debate about whether it's the best even in St. Andrews, but that history of knowing every great golfer that's ever lived has played it. That bridge, I've walked over that bridge with my dad, my daughter, my girlfriend, my best friends. There's something about that. But to your question, Mike, I love discovering new courses.
Yeah.
So this year we're playing Gullane. I haven't played Gullane. We're playing Fortrose and Rosemarkie. I haven't played those
Yeah.
two. I can't wait to play those two. I found Fraserburgh, Peter, is it Peterhead.
Yeah.
I love these lesser known courses. Some of them, Fraserburgh, I found several holes there that were magnificent, right? I mean, there was a string of 3 holes. You're like, these could be in the Open, right? I mean, so you guys traveled a lot together. Are there any like interesting or funny or amusing stories you could share about your experiences on or off the golf course?
I don't know. What goes on tour stays on tour.
Yeah, I was just gonna, that you could say, and your children may watch or listen to this, so be careful what you say.
Innocent stories.
Yeah, I think playing golf throws up lots of entertaining moments, which often come from mishit golf shots, or you've been playing your fantastic round of golf, and then all of a sudden you're invited to play through the group in front, and you sort of, when you're a golfer like I am, you tend to crumble when you're then off the tee and you've got the audience. But I mean, we had a lot of fun playing various of the golf courses. I had a tragi-comedy experience with Craig, which was at the Renaissance Club, where the Scottish Open has been played and is coming back to as well. Magnificent course, and we had a fabulous, a fantastic caddy there, and I'd never had a hole-in-one until we were at the Renaissance, and I can't remember which par 3 it is on the 9, but Craig teed off and hit, nice shot solidly to the green, which was sort of up on a bit of a plateau, so you could tell that it had rested up there to the left of the flag. And I hit a tee shot, I can't remember, it was a 9-iron or a wedge, and as soon as I hit it, our caddy said, that's in the hole. That's in the hole. That's a fantastic shot. Wow. And I said, really? And he went, yeah, trust me, that's in the hole. So we picked up our bags, and we're walking up to the green, and I was saying to Craig, and I was saying to our caddy, I mean, I've never had a hole-in-one. This is just extraordinary. This is just such a fantastic moment. And I knew that as we got up to that level, that it was all about, were there 2 balls on the green or was there only one? Because if there was only one, it was Craig's, and mine was in the cup. And we got up to the green. There was Craig's ball. Mine wasn't anywhere to be seen. So my enthusiasm was mounting even more. I walked up to the cup, and there was nothing in it. And in fact, my ball was probably 20 yards rolled off the green in the rough. And a few minutes later, I think I was putting for a bogey 4, having thought that I'd had the hole-in-one. So I think that's what golf is like. You can go from joy to despair within a very short period of time. And it was about the only thing our caddy got wrong, I would have to say, that day. He was absolutely fabulous. But
that's funny.
Yeah.
That's a great story. I thought the way when you were telling the story, I'm thinking he did get a hole-in-one, and I was going to ask Craig. I'm like, are we to believe that he can't remember what hole it was? I mean,
exactly. No, that's still. I've still to achieve that. Yeah.
So you guys traveled around Scotland. You're both from Scotland, but did you discover a Scotland that you'd both forgotten, or find something new about Scotland that you never knew that was interesting or surprising to you?
I don't know about that, but yeah, last summer playing lots of golf with Mike, I was reminded of the joy of those little towns in Scotland that are entirely given over to golf. which we don't quite have in England. Maybe there's some examples in the States, if you think of Pinehurst, but courses that are entirely towns that are entirely given up to the game, where you play out of the town and then you play back in. So St Andrews is the famous example. You play back towards the spires, but the same can be said of Ely or Troon or North Berwick, Gullane, certainly Dornoch, these little places where everyone is totally enthralled to the game. And that was incredibly charming to me. It made me think, this is where I need to be living. What am I doing south of the border?
Yeah. Do you know, I think Scotland, I mean, I grew up in Scotland, now living here as an adult, but there's still parts of Scotland that have been undiscovered until relatively recently for me. I mean, it was October last year, I went for the very first time to Skye, and I played one of the little 9 courses on Skye, but I was blown away by Skye. Skye just has the most spectacular scenery. You think the scenery in the Highlands is pretty impressive, and then you go to Skye, and everywhere you turn, it's these extraordinary mountain ranges just all around you, and it's mesmerizing. And I couldn't believe that I'd not been before. I couldn't believe that I hadn't experienced that. So often what's your doorstep, you don't then go and visit, and so there's still so many parts of Scotland to discover. A good way of discovering it is playing golf and playing golf courses.
Yeah, I was on Skye a while ago, well, several years ago, and I agree with you. There were parts I was telling my girlfriend, I go, this looks like Hawaii. The mountain ranges look like volcanic rock that you would see on mountains in Hawaii. They've got a wonderful distillery there. I bought my most expensive dinner there.
Right.
At the Three Chimneys, which was
Three Chimneys. Yeah.
Crazy expensive. So do you guys have any joint ventures planned? Like, what's next? Are you going to write more golf books, or are you guys one and done?
No, this is it. This is an ongoing thing. So we've set up this little publishing company called Ultimo, and it's through Ultimo that we produced GOLFLAND Scotland. And so GOLFLAND blank is certainly coming next, and perhaps some other titles as well. We've got quite a big slate, and we've only just released GOLFLAND Scotland, so in the very near future, the decision's got to be made about what we undertake next. I guess what's going to happen is we're going to collaborate with other writers, at least on certain territories, because like you were saying before, Florida with almost 2,000 courses, that's beyond. That's beyond any man. So we may work with other people, but yeah, we're going to produce other books.
Yeah, excellent. Well, we'll look forward to seeing those. So I'm not exaggerating. I love the GOLFLAND Scotland book. I can't wait to share it with the people that travel with us. So, which brings me to a question. We bring over a lot of people for the first time. What advice do you have for people traveling to play golf in Scotland for the first time?
You probably hear this a lot. I guess you play golf in North America, and most clubs have got practice facilities, and you go and you expect to warm up, and it's a slightly different game in Scotland. So I would say embrace that. Most people who are old enough and wealthy enough to travel over to the home of golf and play the courses there, they're not going to learn anything new stood on the driving range for 40 minutes before they tee off anyway. Have a cup of tea, have a putt, and just go for it. Relax. Yeah. Don't worry about the warm up. And a small stretch in the changing rooms. Embrace
a bacon roll and a coffee.
Yes.
Bacon rolls are a novelty to us.
Okay.
How about you, Mike?
I think probably two things. I think you touched on it, Jeff, earlier, which was around don't just get seduced by playing the most famous golf courses. They will be fantastic experiences, but try and integrate some of those those lesser known golf courses, and try and get recommendations on those, because that will definitely enrich the experience that you have. And then probably a common one is that pack for whatever time of, even if you're going in the height of the theoretical Scottish summer, pack for all forms of weather. that's
Craig,
probably...
you said you must hear this a lot. The number one piece of advice people from the British Isles give us on the podcast is buy a good waterproof.
Yes.
You gotta have a good waterproof suit.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think I remember around at Gullane with my wife, where, probably around Easter time, and we experienced, we had glorious sunshine, we then had rain, we had sleet, and we went back to sunshine again. So Scotland can deliver a diverse weather conditions within a single round on a single day. So, but that's part of the experience of it again.
Yeah. So last question, what is on your golf bucket list? Is there anything left?
There's much. Like Mike, I've still not had a hole in one. So that would be a nice thing to achieve. Maybe if you're thinking golf travel, though, what I really fancy is some of the big US resorts that have kind of come about in recent times. That's what I fancy. So Bands and Dunes, or Streamsong, or something like that. A week settled in somewhere, playing some really interesting golf courses.
How about you, Mike?
I think, probably similar. I mean, I think there's probably hundreds of things on the golf bucket list in terms of, we're talking about Scotland and all the great golf courses of Scotland, but there, in so many other parts of the world, there are just magnificent courses to play. So I think I'd like to explore more courses overseas, whether it, closer to home, playing Royal Portrush as an example, or going further afield, Royal Melbourne in Australia. I mean, there's some extraordinary courses in Canada, Cabot Hills, and golf courses like that. So I think there's a long bucket list probably to try and get through. Yeah.
Well, when you each get your hole in one, I'll be happy to welcome you to the club. I'll give you the secret handshake.
You're showing off.
I got lucky 3 years ago and had my first. It was.
Did you? Where was that?
It's a club nearby called Canongate, and they've got 2 18s. I was on the Rockmore course. I was playing by myself, kind of like you at Gullane, after work on a sunny, summer evening. 8th hole, like 140 yards, little downhill, 9-iron, hit behind the hole, spun back in. And when the ball disappears, you're like, did that just happen? So my friend said, that doesn't count because you weren't playing with anybody to witness it. There was no witness. I said, oh, there was a witness. All right. I witnessed it. Right. That's all that matters. Right. It was the perfect, it was the only, it was a perfect golf shot, where you hit it exactly as you thought you would. I mean, that happens maybe once in a lifetime, maybe a handful of times in a lifetime, if you're lucky, that you hit a perfect drive or a perfect shot, but this was like, anyway, that was fantastic.
Moment. Yeah.
So guys, I can't tell you how happy I am to have had you on the podcast, and we're thrilled that you guys could be here. We're wishing you tremendous success with the book. We'll be buying copies, and we can't wait to hopefully we'll meet you guys when we're over there.
Right.
Yeah.
This summer in Scotland.
Okay.
That would be great. Thanks for having us on. Really enjoyed it.
It's been our pleasure.